It all started with a single raindrop, then another and another, until the sky erupted into chaos. What began as an ordinary day for me, Malik, a delivery driver in Ouagadougou, Burkina Faso, turned into something extraordinary. A storm, a stranger, and a moment that would change my life forever. But here's the thing. None of this was planned. None of it made sense at first. And you won't believe what happened next. Not unless I tell you every detail. The road ahead disappeared under sheets of water, and panic clawed at my chest. That's when he appeared. Yes, him. The President of Burkina Faso, Captain Ibrahim Traoré. Alone. No guards, no entourage. Just him. In the middle of nowhere, drenched by the same storm swallowing me whole. What did he want? Why was he there? How could one man, a leader, change everything in a matter of hours? Keep watching. Because this isn't just a story about survival. It's about hope, humanity, and how sometimes storms bring unexpected blessings. Let's begin. The air had been heavy all morning, like an invisible weight pressing down on my shoulders. It was one of those days in Burkina Faso where the heat simmered beneath a cloudless sky, but something about it felt off. My name is Malik, and at 28 years old, I've spent most of my life navigating the dusty roads of Ouagadougou as a delivery driver. Today was no different, or so I thought. I woke up early, as usual, sipping lukewarm tea while listening to the faint hum of traffic outside my small apartment. The day promised nothing extraordinary, just another route with packages stacked neatly in the back of my van. But deep inside, I couldn't shake the feeling that today would be different somehow. Maybe it was the stillness in the air, or the way the sun seemed unusually pale, casting long shadows over the city streets. Whatever it was, I ignored it and set out for work. By mid-afternoon, I had already delivered dozens of parcels, a mix of groceries, clothes, and even a birthday gift for someone's child. Each stop brought its own rhythm, hurried customers rushing to sign receipts, children peeking curiously from doorways, and the occasional friendly chat with shopkeepers along the way. Life moved steadily, predictably, that is, until I reached the outskirts of town. As I drove further away from the bustling markets and colorful neighborhoods, the landscape shifted. Dusty roads replaced paved ones, lined with towering baobab trees whose gnarled branches stretched toward the heavens. The wind began to pick up, carrying with it the scent of earth and impending rain. At first, it wasn't alarming, just a gentle breeze ruffling my shirt. But within minutes, the calm dissolved into chaos. Dark clouds gathered overhead, swallowing the blue sky whole. Lightning forked across the horizon, illuminating the barren fields around me. Then came the rain. Not a drizzle, but a torrential downpour that hit the windshield like hailstones. Visibility dropped instantly. I slowed the van, gripping the steering wheel tightly as thunder roared above, shaking the ground beneath my tires. And then, it happened. A deafening crack split the air, louder than any thunderclap I'd ever heard. Before I could react, a massive baobab tree crashed onto the road mere meters ahead, blocking my path completely. My heart leapt into my throat as I slammed on the brakes, skidding dangerously close to the fallen giant. For a moment, all I could hear was the relentless drumming of rain against the windshield. Panic clawed at my chest. What now? I was stranded in the middle of nowhere, miles from help, with no cell signal to call for assistance. The rain showed. No sign of stopping. If anything, it grew heavier, swallowing the world in sheets of water. I stepped out of the van, soaked within seconds, and stared at the wreckage before me. The tree was too big to move alone, its roots tangled like a monstrous web. That's when headlights pierced through the curtain of rain. A vehicle emerged from the storm, its sleek black frame almost ghostly in the dim light. As it approached, my breath caught in my throat. Who could possibly be driving out here in this madness? To my astonishment, it wasn't just any car. It was a black SUV with tinted windows. And when the door opened, stepping out was none other than Captain Ibrahim Traoré himself, the President of Burkina Faso, alone. No guards, no convoy, just him. Are you all right? His voice cut through the storm like a lifeline. Before I could respond, he walked straight toward me, unbothered by the rain or the wreckage surrounding us. "Let's clear this path," he said simply, rolling up his sleeves. But why was the president doing this? Wasn't he supposed to be miles away, safe in his palace? Captain Ibrahim Traoré didn't wait for me to answer his question, or even process what was happening. He moved with purpose, grabbing a thick branch from the fallen tree and tossing it aside as if it weighed nothing. His sleeves were rolled up, revealing forearms streaked with mud and rainwater. For a moment, I stood frozen, watching him work. This wasn't how I imagined meeting the president of my country, or anyone in power for that matter. Leaders weren't supposed to get their hands dirty, not like this. Yet here he was, standing knee-deep in mud alongside me, working tirelessly to clear the road. "Come on," he called over his shoulder, snapping me out of my daze. "We don't have all day." I hesitated for only a second before stepping forward to help. The weight of the branches surprised me. They were heavier than they looked, slick with rain and stubbornly tangled. Still, I followed his lead, dragging debris to the side of the road while thunder growled ominously above us. Each movement felt surreal, like I'd stepped into some alternate reality where roles were reversed, and the man who governed our nation treated me not as a subject, but as an equal. Despite the storm raging around us, there was a strange calmness in the rhythm of our work. Every now and then, Traoré glanced at me, his expression unreadable beneath the rain streaming down his face. Finally, after what felt like hours, he paused, leaning against a broken tree trunk to catch his breath. "You're strong," he remarked casually, wiping water from his brow. "Stronger than most." His words caught me off guard. Strong? Me? If only he knew how fragile I felt inside. Every day was a battle, against poverty, against doubt, against the weight of dreams I feared might never come true. I wanted to explain all of this, but the words stuck in my throat. Instead, I nodded and kept working, unsure of what else to say. As we labored together, the storm showed no mercy. Water pooled around our boots, making each movement harder than the last. Still, Traoré pressed on, his determination unwavering. Finally, after clearing enough space to allow passage, at least for smaller vehicles, he stopped and turned to me. "Tell me your story, Malik," he said softly, his voice cutting through the noise of the storm. For a moment, I hesitated. What could I possibly say to someone like him? But something in his gaze urged me to speak, to trust him. So I told him everything, about my struggles as a delivery driver, about the dreams I buried deep inside because they felt impossible, about the nights I spent wondering if I'd ever amount to more than just another face in the crowd. He listened intently, his eyes never leaving mine. When I finished, he didn't offer sympathy or empty promises. Instead, he pulled out his phone and made a call. "Send a recovery team immediately," he instructed. Then, turning back to me, he added, "We'll talk more once we're out of this mess." While waiting for the recovery team, Traoré revealed something surprising. He often ventured into rural areas incognito, seeking genuine connections with ordinary citizens. "People think leaders should stay hidden behind gates and walls," he said, shaking his head. "But how can I lead if I don't know what my people are going through?" His honesty struck a chord within me. Here was a man who chose to walk among us, not because he had to, but because he believed it was the right thing to do. Just as the recovery team arrived, headlights illuminating the soaked landscape, Traoré reached into his pocket and handed me a folded piece of paper. "Read this later," he said with a small smile. "It might change your life." What could it be? And why did he trust me so completely? By the time the military recovery team arrived, night had fallen, cloaking the world in darkness. The storm still lingered, though its fury had softened to a steady drizzle. Flashlights cut through the gloom as soldiers worked efficiently to clear the remaining debris from the road. Captain Traoré oversaw their efforts briefly before turning back to me. "We need to find some shelter," he said firmly, gesturing toward a crumbling concrete structure nearby, a roadside shelter meant for travelers but long abandoned. Its roof sagged slightly, and water dripped through cracks, but it offered enough protection to keep us dry. Inside, the air smelled of damp earth and old wood. We sat side by side on a splintered bench, our clothes soaked and clinging uncomfortably to our skin. For a while, neither of us spoke. The sound of rain pattering against the roof filled the silence, punctuated occasionally by distant thunder. It was strange, sitting here with the president of my country, sharing space like two ordinary men caught in an extraordinary situation. Finally, Traoré broke the quiet. "Tell me more about your dreams, Malik," he said, his tone gentle yet probing. I hesitated, unsure how much to share. What did he really want to know? Did he care about the struggles of someone like me, a delivery driver with no connections, no influence? But there was sincerity in his voice, a genuine curiosity that made me feel seen in a way I hadn't felt in years. So, I told him everything, about how I'd always dreamed of doing something bigger with my life, something meaningful, about how I loved logistics, not just delivering packages, but figuring out efficient routes, solving problems, making systems work better. I confess that sometimes I imagine myself managing operations on a larger scale, maybe even contributing to national projects. But those dreams felt laughable now, given my circumstances. Traoré listened without interrupting, nodding occasionally, as if piecing together a puzzle. When I finished, he leaned back against the wall, his expression thoughtful. "You have potential, Malik," he said after a pause. "Potential many people don't recognize in themselves. But you see it. You feel it. That's rare." His words stirred something inside me, a flicker of hope I'd buried long ago. As the conversation deepened, I noticed him glance at the folded piece of paper he'd handed me earlier. "Did you read it yet?" he asked. "No," I admitted, pulling it from my pocket. My hands trembled slightly as I unfolded it, revealing neat handwriting scrawled across the page. It was a job referral to the National Logistics Department. "You've got courage," Traoré said firmly, meeting my stunned gaze. "Courage is rare. Let's put yours to better use." Tears welled in my eyes, blurring the ink on the page. Courage? Me? The idea seemed absurd, yet his conviction was undeniable. He believed in me, in my abilities, my dreams, more than I ever had. For a moment, I couldn't speak. The weight of his gesture settled over me, heavy and profound. This wasn't just a random act of kindness. It was an investment, a vote of confidence from someone who held immense power, but chose to use it humbly. As the rain continued outside, we talked more about leadership, resilience, and the importance of staying grounded despite success. Traoré shared stories of his own journey, the challenges of balancing duty with humanity, and the sacrifices required to serve a nation torn apart by conflict. "Being a leader isn't about power," he said earnestly. "It's about connection, about standing beside your people, not above them." His words resonated deeply, stirring emotions I hadn't realized I carried. For the first time, I saw him not as a distant figurehead, but as a man, a human being with fears and hopes much like mine. Just as I began to thank him properly, a photographer appeared, snapping a photo of us sitting together in the dim light of the shelter. Little did I know, that image would soon go viral, sparking conversations nationwide and changing both our lives forever. The next morning, the storm had passed, leaving behind a glistening landscape bathed in sunlight. Dew clung to leaves, and puddles reflected the pale blue sky like scattered mirrors. I woke up exhausted but restless, my mind replaying the events of the previous night over and over again. The President of Burkina Faso had not only helped me clear a fallen tree, he'd listened to my dreams, handed me a job referral, and spoken to me as if I mattered. But it wasn't until I checked my phone that reality truly hit me. Notifications flooded in. Texts from friends, calls from family members, messages from strangers congratulating me or asking for interviews. Confused, I opened social media and froze. There it was, a photo of Captain Traoré and me sitting together under the shelter, drenched and weary, but connected by something deeper than words. The caption read, "A leader among his people." Within hours, the image went viral. People marveled at the sight of their president, sleeves rolled up, helping an ordinary man in the rain. They praised his humility, his willingness to connect with everyday citizens. And they celebrated me, a symbol of resilience and hope. At first, I didn't know what to make of it all. Strangers called me courageous, inspiring, even heroic, but I knew better. I wasn't any of those things. I was just someone trying to get through life, one delivery at a time. Yet, somehow, this moment had turned me into something more. Days later, I received an official invitation to join the National Logistics Department. It wasn't just a job, it was a chance to build a better future for myself, for my family, and perhaps even for others like me. When I arrived at the office on my first day, nerves prickling beneath my skin, Captain Traoré greeted me personally. He shook my hand firmly, his smile warm and reassuring. "Remember," he said, "this is just the beginning." Over time, I discovered that our encounter hadn't been random. Traoré often ventured into rural areas incognito, seeking genuine connections with his people. That day, he hadn't chosen me. I had simply been lucky enough to cross his path. As I settled into my new role, I realized how much I'd underestimated myself. The skills I'd honed as a delivery driver, problem solving, adaptability, and perseverance were exactly what the department needed. My ideas for improving efficiency were welcomed eagerly, and soon I found myself leading small teams, mentoring others, and contributing to projects that impacted thousands of lives. But perhaps the greatest surprise came when I learned that the viral photo had inspired change beyond my own life. Citizens began sharing stories of leaders who walked among them, quietly making a difference without fanfare. Conversations about leadership shifted from power and authority to empathy and connection. Today, whenever I drive past that same stretch of road where the storm changed everything, I remember the lessons I learned that night. Not just about courage or potential, but about humanity. About how a single act of kindness can ripple outward, touching lives in ways we may never fully understand. Captain Traoré taught me that storms don't exist to destroy us. They exist to reveal our strength. And sometimes, in the midst of chaos, we find the people who remind us of who we are and who we can become. If this story touched your heart, please like, comment, and subscribe for more inspiring tales. Share this video with someone who needs a reminder that even in the darkest storms, miracles can happen.